After the match, I took a bit of a break because I thought maybe taking a bit of time to compose myself and gather my thoughts, maybe I could figure out some angle where I can talk about something a little bit more positively and look for positives. Today's game was the first time in a very long time that I truly felt like Manchester United just suck. We're awful. And I think it was the first time where I was truly in a lot of pain. Prior to the match, I was hopeful, excited, nervous, giddy, optimistic. All of those positive yet sort of angsty emotions were flowing through my mind. And then Man United posted a picture of Patrice Evra and Ji-sung Park, who was watching the game today. And Zara, my friend Zara, who's an incredible presenter, she was interviewing Patrice and G, and Patrice was like, turned around to G. He's like, G, I'm here for the occasion. I wore my red shades. I'm showing up for my Man United. I look the part. What are you doing? And then G responded coolly. He's like, I don't need to wear anything. My blood is red. And that set the tone for me. I was so happy. Like, that brought so much love and smile to my face. And then the game started. And Manchester City, to be fair, who have been probably in the past decade, have been one of the strong, if not strongest teams in world football. Despite them still having a formidable side and still playing very good football, they came today and I felt like there was an element of City that was a bit lacking. I thought Manchester United could get something from here. They were scary, but not their usual scary selves. They were overwhelming, but not as overwhelming as they usually look like. And I thought, okay, maybe there's an opportunity for Manchester United to truly take something. It wasn't just because of my delirious, delusional optimism. I really felt like in that opening 5-10 minutes, maybe Man United could do something here. And then there was a moment in that first half that really cemented where Man United were. And it starts with Victor Lindelof for me. And I'm going to say this. You guys know how much I love Victor Lindelof. And today, in fairness to him, he had to play a left back. And he's been asked to do so a couple of times these past few months. He's not a traditional left back, but he's still a defender. He's not a starter, but he's still a Man United player. There was a moment where a ball came over the top from a Manchester City player's pass, and it was pretty much skewed, and it flowed over the top, and it was looking likely that it was going to go out of bounds. But it was still a relatively 50-50-ish ball. Victor Lindelof is a defender by trade. He's been playing for Manchester United. He's a senior player. I don't mind him thinking and being assured by the fact that the ball is going out of bounds, so I'm safe. I don't mind that. But there was a lack in awareness. There was a lack in urgency behind his position, his stance, his awareness. Every single element of that moment from Victor Lindelof made me feel like, what's going on? And lo and behold, Kyle Walker makes a darting run, covers half of the pitch, sprints full speed, jumps as high as he could. He leapt in the air and kept that ball in play and forced Manchester United to be in a dangerous situation. They didn't score from that, but I was worried because that was something that told me Man United players are not looking sharp today, Victor Lindelof in particular. I'll protect him when it's appropriate. Those are fundamental defensive basics. That is not a young player who lacks experience. That is a veteran player who's been playing for us. Albeit second string, sometimes first string, sometimes third string, playing for his national team. That's when I realized, things are not going to look good. And then there was another moment going up in the pitch where Manchester United players were tussling with Phil Foden and whatever. And then Phil Foden went down into the ground, but still the ball was sort of within his atmosphere. And Phil Foden, still trying to keep the ball in play, kicks the ball around, whatever, and then the ball gets played out. But Man United players, now feeling like they were fouled, turns around to look at the referee and go like this. Meanwhile, Manchester City players are still playing because they didn't hear the whistle. And lo and behold, Paul Tierney, who I thought was a disgrace today, didn't call a foul. Whether you like it or not, the referee controls that, and he didn't call the foul, so that therefore, by logic and by laws of the game, the ball's still in play. Man City players are now darting forward, and Man United players who are doing this are now having to play catch-up. Something's fundamental, something's existential. What is going on in that moment? What are we doing? We're going against one of the arguably top teams in the world. You have to be ready. You have to be sharp. You have to be playing your game. But you're throwing your hands up already? What are we doing? There was another moment involving Scott McTominay, who I've said a gajillion times. If you guys have been following me for the years that I've been doing this stuff, I've been saying that Scott McTominay is a great lad. He's a good footballer, but he's not a midfielder by trade. He cannot do the simple things. Looks like he gets head loss at times. He looks afraid at times to come show up for the ball. Defensively, he looks like he just zones out at times. And today, he zoned out. There was a moment where Diogo Dalot was here and Scott McTominay was behind them, or sort of holding the line together. Bernardo Silva makes the overlapping run. And in that first instance, when I saw that happen, I'll give Scott McTominay the benefit of the doubt. The run came from an angle which Scott maybe couldn't have seen, and he made the overlap. And thankfully, Man United didn't concede. But in the second half, the exact same scenario occurred. But this time, Bernardo is making a run in front of Scott McTominay's vision. Right across. Makes the overlap. Scott McTominay just stands there as Bernardo makes that overlap. The exact same overlap. And now he puts in the cross, and Man City are 2-0. The 1-0, the VAR situation, I don't even want to talk about it because somebody told me that you have to wait until the ball is out of play if it's a clear and obvious error. All right, cool. Whatever. Clear and obvious in a box? Whatever. If VAR is consistent, Harry Maguire did the same thing. He just absolutely humped Erling Haaland, or was it Rodri or somebody, and he just completely just dragged him. That was even a harsher penalty if it is a penalty. But clear and obvious, right? They didn't call it. All right. Cool. Where is the consistency? I was calling for a penalty against Man United in that moment because if VAR is consistent, if we're going to start calling penalties in the box like that, if we're going to call those kinds of things fouls, which, okay, I'll give that to you. That looks to be a penalty. A harsher one just occurred, but that's not a clear and obvious penalty. I don't want to talk too much about the VAR because fucked. These players look like they weren't up for the challenge. These players look like they weren't up for the task. They were showing no sense of urgency, no sense of rhythm, no sense of tempo. Bruno Fernandez, today, really, he lost me. He lost me. I've been protecting him for years and years on end. And I've said before, if you've been following me, I said that as much as I love Bruno Fernandez, he's not captain material because I personally, as a personal preference, don't like watching players moan consistently. Moaning is an element of Bruno Fernandez's game that is just, it's there. It happens every game. And fair play to Bruno because I feel bad for him because today he had a really unfortunate moment here or there where he just felt like he just didn't get calls and the referee was just not giving him anything and he was arguing with the referee. But you're the captain of Manchester United. This is why I said Casemiro should have been captain because I felt like Casemiro, despite the lack in English, he shows the quality of a leader. Bruno Fernandez, I'm not saying he doesn't show leadership capabilities, but that's the only thing personally that I don't like, the moaning element. He had an awful game today. Bruno Fernandez had one of the worst games, probably one of the worst performers on that pitch, but he can't get dropped because he's one of our better players, right? By stats, by, I don't know, performances in the training grounds, whatever it is. He can't get dropped. He had an awful game. And there was a moment where you're going against Man City. It's so hard to win possession against them. And when you have possession, you have to be so clinical. And in front of the 18-yard box, he gets the ball and he no-look back heel passes to no man. And Man City player who's the closest to it just scoops it up and just moves on. And then Bruno Fernandez goes around moaning at everybody else, just screaming and moaning. He moaned at Christian Eriksen because he couldn't make a run, despite Christian Eriksen having played probably 80 minutes at that point, or 70 minutes. Who's been probably better on a performance perspective than Bruno Fernandez. Going around moaning at everyone. What is he moaning about? Who is he yelling at? He had an awful game today. Awful, awful game. Martial comes on, and because he's trying to get himself warmed up because now it's getting cold and the rain's coming. He's just kind of like, I don't know if you guys caught that. There was a moment where he was just like doing like warm-up drills to warm himself up quickly. Should have been warmed up before he got on. Anthony comes on. who's been having an awful time at Man United. Certain decent, good moments, but there was moments where I don't know what he's been doing. He comes on. Awful timed tackle. Misses against Doku. And then because he just let Doku just whiz by him, he comes chasing after Doku and chops him. And then he starts beefing Doku and he gets booked. What are you doing? What are y'all doing? Every pass today has been inaccurate. Couldn't string 5 passes together. As a midfielder, there's space to be run. Turn. When receiving, turn. Run. Somebody scream to him. Tell him to turn. Ball comes, he takes a touch and goes backwards towards his keeper. When there's a gajillion acres of space behind him. Diogo Dalot, Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire, Johnny Evans, Victor Lindelof, Bruno Fernandez, Sofian Amrabat, Christian Eriksen, Rasmus Højlund, Marcus Rashford. Everybody on that pitch today was unacceptable, apart from Andre Onana, who I thought had a decent game. His saves kept Man United from getting smacked 7-8-0. Some of these players have to take a long, hard look at the mirror and say, I got to do better. I have to do better. Because today, I'm done. That was unacceptable. And it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder for me to defend some of these players. My man of the match, Andre Onana. Nothing else to be said. He kept us in this game, and Man United players, outfield players, let him down. Where do we go from here? I truly hope and pray that the injured players return as soon as possible so that we can try and improve our performances, at least based on the starting 11. We go from there. My head is gone. I don't know where to go. That's it for me, guys.